Hello, it's Greg Grizzled and Geiger. We're back. We hope you're having a happy day wherever you're listening to this audio content from. As always, we'd like to thank you for your continued support of Greg Grizzled and Geiger's social media and writing efforts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is not a podcast show. This, by request, is a talk about self-editing, specifically how to edit yourself the majority of the time more effectively and efficiently. Doesn't mean to have every answer for you. Doesn't mean that after you're listening to this great talk that you will become rich and famous. Although I hope that for each and every one of you who took the time out to listen and will continue to listen this far, that's appreciated. I do these things for myself because I like talking about the craft of writing, and people I know like asking me questions about the craft of writing, so I enjoy that. And I also, for myself, would like to continue to evaluate what I'm doing as a writer, editor, critiquer, beta reader, and all the rest. So it helps me selfishly talking about it out loud and thinking about things more deeply than I might otherwise do helps me. So I appreciate your time for that. For those of you who don't know me, I am Greg Grizzled and Gaijin. I'm the author of several ebooks. Some of them have done very well, especially on Amazon Japan. I'm an active blogger who's written more than 2,000 blog posts. I'm a guest blogger. I'm an active editor, critique partner, beta reader, book doctor. I'm also a music reviewer for a couple of websites. I hold master's degrees in music theory, which was research and writing. I spent about 6 years writing at an academic level, editing, researching for a variety of professors, students, and staff. I've written or edited or ghost edited thousands, if not tens of thousands of articles, prose, resumes, college essays, entrance letters, fortune cookies. I've written dark, light, biblical, plays, short stories, novellas, full novels. I've edited everything from sci-fi, young adult, romantic, dystopian, and all the rest. I'm well connected and built a mini social media empire on Twitter, Craig Hoffman 11, for those of you who are into that. So while I don't have every answer, I took a little nobody English teacher in Japan and became something in my sphere in terms of writing. And that's a lot of effort. But today we're talking about self-editing. First, let me say, none of the products, services, or people I mention, even in a tacit way in this talk, are meant to be endorsements. Your choices, your money, and all that are up to you. I should say I do almost all my writing these days on Google Docs. That works for me. I know a lot of people use Microsoft Scrivener. I get a lot of drafts from people who have used Scrivener. Mixed reviews on all of those. Google Docs, I think these days, just personal opinion, tends to dominate. For me, it's easy to use, and I live in Japan, so it's quite easy to share. The share function on Google Docs, you should know. If you don't, go to YouTube, watch a video. You can share varying degrees of access from full editing function to suggest, comment folks to simply viewing. And that's very useful because, to be honest, the self-editing requires at least some outside perspective. And the higher level of outside perspective group that you can put together, the better for your writing. Even if you're a pretty good writer, it doesn't hurt. In my specific situation, my group of core people who look at my stuff before publication includes a New York Times best-selling author, a professional editor, a former New York book editor. As well, it also includes several people with advanced degrees in a variety of disciplines, all the way to PhD. It also includes regular readers from all walks of life, people who simply enjoy reading and supporting me. And all of those people play significant roles in my ability to self-edit without spending money. And so the first piece of advice I will say is, if you are a young or even a seasoned author without a group like that, you should work tirelessly to build one. You will say, well, how do I do that? You start by reading for other people. If you want to be a better self-editor, practice more editing for other people. And I talked about in other content on my channel and my blog and several groups, you don't have to be perfect. I read a lot of books, between 400 to 500 books, stories, novellas, plays, even blog posts every year. I rarely find anything that's almost perfect, and I never find anything that's perfect. And I read a lot of professional level stuff, elite level stuff. There's always something that could have been changed, improved, or that was flat out missed. And again, that even includes at the professional level. The goal is about getting better. Editing is a process of writing practice, revision, and improvement. And sharing with people to get the outside perspective is important. Especially when you're out of school. If you're still a student and listening to this as a writer, you have English teachers and professors, right? And they're kind of at your beck and call, and you might even have a classroom full of other students who you can trade with. Please read this, please read this, please read this. I used to do it all the time for my friends in college. Some of them have college degrees only because, by the grace of God, and that I'll say, edited heavily. I won't go as far as to say wrote, but for some it was darn close. And that's kind of how it works. But if you're an adult, a working adult with dreams of being a writer and or more, you're doing a lot of it alone because you're a busy person. Up until this year and the pandemic and some other stuff got my work, I was writing at like 4 a.m. in the morning and editing late at night and doing more things at my lunch hour to push out content, especially for my blog. I was really active there for a while, trying to build a following and grow and engaging people, especially members of the writing community here in Japan. And there are many. As you might expect, people come to Japan, they have dreams of writing books and novels and book deals and blogs and social media content. I know all of them who are worth anything, to be sure, and that's intentional. But when I self-edit, the first step is to write. And that stops a lot of people. I just write. And of course, I do my best to write the good King's English, as my great graduate school professor used to say. But there are mistakes. But it's on the page. And I had this great high school art teacher who was a master of the pottery wheel. And I was okay. I was really good at art, but ceramics was not my forte. And he said, "Hey, Craig, just get it on the wheel." He was also my cross-country coach. He said, "Just spin the foot and get it looking something, and we'll fix it later." And I'd get it kind of looking like whatever. But it looked like in the ballpark. And that's what we're looking for when the first step of the editing process was writing. The second step is getting it to look. So I step back and I look. I'm looking for blobs of prose and skimpy areas. Because in these days with digital devices, that's really difficult and annoying for people to read. Readability. Readability starts with how it looks on the page. And that comes with how much you have blobbed together in paragraphs. And that takes a little time. And when I do that, I usually put it into an audio converter. There are many, like for hearing impaired people. So I use a lot of that. It's free generally. Google Translate you can use for free. There are word limits in the free part. But I just listen while I'm reading and moving stuff around. And I can pause. And I'm picking off some big errors. A missed word, a name mistake. And that takes some time, but it's well worth the time. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be better. So now I've got the pages looking like writing. I don't know if it's good writing, but it's looking like writing. And I've got most of the big squirrels fished out. Most of the names are right. Most of the people are doing whatever it is the people are doing. Then I usually send it to somebody. A couple people. I just say, just read it. Do you like it? Is it okay? And I know it's okay. I have confidence. I don't like insecure writers. If you're an insecure writer, don't write. I know I can write. I know there are people better. But there are many people who are not nearly as good as I am. And that's the way it works in almost any art. But I can hold my own. Bring it, as they say. And I'm a highly competitive person. And that helps with self-editing. I want to be the best. I want my writing to be the best. And I make and do effort that matches. And if you know me in real life, I'm exactly the same way. So it fits my self-editing is a personality that I want this writing to be the best. I want this writing to be a showcase of what I can do on a creative level, on a writing level, and on an attention to detail level. So now I've listened through it, and I've got things kind of where they're going. And again, I listen, and this time I'm looking for a lot of redundant phrases, crutch words, and repeated kind of things. I'm paying more attention to the dialogues. Are they sounding natural? And you can use your ear. If it sounds like, uh-oh, it's probably not very good. And you're like, wow, that's okay. Or if your ear simply doesn't notice, you're probably in the ballpark. Again, that doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't even mean good, but it probably isn't terrible. And we're just trying to rise and raise the overall level of the prose. So now I've got something that looks like writing and even sounds like writing. And then I take paragraph by paragraph through a program called Grammarly, really famous and popular. There are others, but that one's pretty free and it's pretty short and pretty easy to use, right? I'm pretty lazy to I don't like learning a lot of new technology. I don't have I want to write. I don't want to spend hours learning how to use some piece of technology, right? So I run that paragraph through paragraph, and I pick off as many mistakes as that program can find. And usually it finds quite a bit of them, right? Or quite a few of them, rather. Because, I didn't try to be perfect. I just made it look like writing. And now it's more like writing. At least it should be decreasing in obvious errors. And we're trying to avoid the big gaffes and the obvious errors. People can quibble over certain things in English, especially dialogue style. There's room for that. But it's difficult if you just misspell a word, or you missed a name, or somebody didn't do something. That's bad. So then I've got it looking like a piece of writing. It doesn't mean it's good writing. It just means it's looking that way. So then I run it again slowly through a program called the Hemingway app. The Hemingway app clearly highlights areas of long and convoluted sentences. And I'm really focused on the ones that are really long and really hard for the computer to analyze, to read. And I look for ways, again, not always, but in most cases, the program does highlight an area that could be separated or at least condensed and rewritten in a better way. So I try to get everything into the green. I think it's a red, yellow, green, as I recall. It's been a while since I've actually done it. And that gets me to a clearer piece of writing, I hope. And I send it again to other people, sometimes the same people. You don't like to be too annoying. That's why a big group is nice, because you can send, like, this group gets like one draft, not a draft, but one stage of your writing, and another, and another, and another. And I have people that read every time, so they're just really good pals, and those are the ones that you love. But they're reading, and I'm in the right direction. Then I look at the writing through Google Docs, and I start typing in all of the crutch words. The crutch words like very, well, such, nods, turns, winks, shrugs, all of that stuff like that. And there are lots of websites that tell you all about that stuff. And I'm looking for tendencies to use that stuff just. The other day I was in my current draft that I was just finishing up, this about a week ago, I typed in just, and it appeared like 11 times. And that's pretty high for me. I don't generally like to use that word at all. But I went through every instance of that word, and I read the stuff before and after and the sentence. And it's another good chance to edit for a small mistake. I picked off a lot of small squirrels that remain. And I took about 7 of them out. So now I had 10, and I added some other stuff. And once you go through, there's a zillion of those crutch words. Very, such, always, never, sometimes, quickly, suddenly, immediately. There's a zillion. And none of them are generally necessary in good to elite level writing. And again, it's a chance to read the sentence before, the sentence after, and the sentence that I'm working on. Another chance to pick up mistakes. So now, at this point, I've got a draft, one draft that I've been working on diligently, that looks like writing, sounds like writing, is written like writing, and word choice is now my focus. And I go back to see how I'm repeating words, names. And now I'm starting to look at style. I was reading a nice draft today. It was great. She's an above average writer, but a lot of he, nani, nani, she, nani, nani, Mr. nani, nani, Ms. nani, nani. It's great until you do that for like 70,000 words. And I was describing to her a way that to use the gerund ing to start a sentence and say the same thing with eliminating one. There's a lot of double. She was like, he went to the store and he bought juice. And, you know, you can flip those sentences around in that kind of format, not particularly that one, but in a way where one of the subjects is eliminated with the gerund phrase in the beginning. You could do it in the end. You can't do that all the time. It sounds dumb, right? And I'm also looking for passive writing in that same kind of thing when you're looking for style. And that gets a lot of people. And the show and then the tell stuff. And I try to move as much of the prose descriptions into dialogue. And that helps cut the fluff and the junk. And it also, again, helps you to pick up mistakes and improve dialogue. Because often when the narrative is moved into the dialogue, you have improved the prose, improved the dialogue, and you have created a better world. And that, again, takes some time. That's not something I'm going to do in one day. But I'm going to go section by section, chapter by chapter, paragraph by paragraph, and really look at that stuff. So now I've got writing that looks like writing, sounds like writing, is presented as writing, is written as writing. And now I'm going back looking for the easy, low-hanging fruit mechanics. Periods, semicolons, one of the most incorrectly used mechanics out there. Dashes, hyphens, em dashes, ellipsis, that's the ... if you don't know. Spacing errors. Again, you're not going to get all of them, but I'm going to listen again, and I'm going to specifically not change words, but simply look for mechanical errors. I usually do that chapter by chapter, and I go paragraph by paragraph at that point. And then I make some adjustments. And I send it to somebody and I say, hey, kind of glance over that. Do you see anything that looks just dumb? And people write back. My editor pal that wrote me just this morning actually said, oh, you missed this and this is a space. And in Google Docs, the spacing sometimes is terrible. It's hard to see. So what I do is there's a big trick, right? If you want a big hint, download to a Word document, open the Word document, and Word does show like the missing spaces and the double spaces, and you can compare documents that way and close up the spaces. It's pretty easy to miss a space in Google Docs. I don't know why they can't adjust that. There probably is a way, but I have never seen one. So it's an easy way. And again, it's a chance to read. And usually at that point, I'm pretty sick of editing. So I put it down for a day or two, and I usually read somebody else or edit, work on some other blog or more recently in my music reviews. And the next day or two, I listen again. And now I become a big jerk to myself, and I'm looking for anything that cheeses me, and I make a memo and I just type right over it in green, and I go through the whole draft, and I don't change anything because now it's pretty set, right? So now the changes are more nuanced. Before you make a big change, you delete a paragraph, you change a character's name. It's not that big a deal, right? But now you're to the point where, a major change is going to cause major grief if it's a plot issue or you're covering a plot hole. So I go over and strike it out with green, and it pops up. And I let it sit, and I make a copy of the file. Because now we're getting pretty close, right? Now the changes are again more nuanced and more detailed. I need some, and Google Docs does have older version drafts that you can look up, but I like 2 versions of it at that point because Google Docs has a compare document function, as does Word, by the way. And I was just using that today as I was writing something for someone else. It's nice to see the direction that you're kind of going and thinking. It also is good to send the second draft out to beta readers at that point. And then you can get that feedback back while working on the main copy of your draft. I said I don't make other drafts, but I make copies of my single draft. And so you're able to, because some people don't give feedback quickly, right? And so you might be waiting on somebody to read. Some people read really quick. I'll get a draft back to you in a day. Some of the people 2 or 3 days. Some people take a couple weeks. Some people it takes almost a month, depending on the length or whatever time they have. People are busy, right? And that's not a knock on anybody that reads for me. I appreciate everybody. But that's reality. But you want to keep working, right? My goal is improvement. My goal is to finish. The other part of that is now I've got writing that looks like writing, sounds like writing, presented as writing, uses words that a writer would use, uses mechanics that good writers would use, is free of basic errors like spacing, spelling. Run a spell check, man. And not just on Google. Run it through several. Then I usually take that and I put it through an online program to assess the reading level and readability to make sure that the computer finds it to be in the ballpark. You know, if it's too difficult, that's a prose that's not going to be very appealing to a general audience. And that happens. And there are programs that help you pick better words, thesaurus programs. You can get too high level. The average reader is an 18 to 40-year-old woman. That's the target these days. And I'm a man, a 45-year-old man, right? And I'm highly educated and highly read and a lot of experience writing. So I'm very cognizant, there's a good word, of word choice and word level. So that kind of program really helps. So now I've got writing that looks like writing, sounds like writing, presented as writing, good writing, devoid of basic errors like spacing, spelling, and double periods. You can ... in Google, double check. You'd be surprised how many times you miss an easy period and you miss something like a semicolon, or there's a sentence without a period, or there's something incorrectly spaced. And so then I give myself a deadline from that moment that whatever else I put into the book and whatever else I give myself to do for that book must be done, because you can edit and edit and edit and edit yourself to negative results. So I just call it a day. I tell people that all the time. It's important to know where to start the story. It's important to know when to end the story, both points that many people struggle with. And it's important to know when to stop the writing and editing process. And people say, well, Craig, when do you stop that? And you stop that when you can read the draft and say to yourself, there's nothing more that I can do for this piece of writing. And you leave it alone. And you wait for the final people to kind of check and look at it. And you format it, especially if you're an independent publisher for Amazon. And you check all the spacing. And you look again and read it again, just for fun, through their little previewers that they have. You can download one for your computer that I use a lot. And you just make sure it looks like a book. And there's that. If it looks like a duck and acts like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. And the same thing for your self-editing. If it looks like a book and reads like a book and sounds like a book, it's probably a pretty good book. And that's the way I approach self-editing. Editing, self-editing with a purpose, with precision, and with persistence for excellence in every facet of the writing process. If you can do that, you probably, most certainly, will have a very, very, very good chance at producing something that you can be most proud of. I hope that helps the folks who requested this content. I really feel good about talking about it today. And I hope that if you are self-editing and struggling, that you simply take it one thing at a time with a full effort. That's it, and have a great, great day.